brings us to our next game. You predicted the Rams were going to win 24-17, and I predicted Seattle was going to win 30-13. Rams ended up taking over this game 17-16 in a nail biter. And honestly, in a game I don't feel like they should have won.
Why that?
I think Seattle played better. Honestly, that's what it boils down to. Like it. I feel like this was Seattle's game to lose and not the Rams' game to win.
Mm-hmm.
And not just coming into the game, but even the game, there's missed opportunities several times throughout the game. And, Jason Myers missed one field goal, and that was the difference. That was the difference in the game. Jason Myers doesn't miss that one field goal, then they win that game. They had equal turnovers. They, both played pretty clean ball. And in a game like that, there's no reason that the Rams should beat the Seahawks. There just wasn't. But they somehow figured out a way to.
I don't disagree because the Seahawks are a much better team. They just unfortunately also lost Kenneth Walker, early in the game, which I think was a major hit for them. Even though they do have a very talented, second running back in Zach Charbonnet, who did 15 carries for 47 yards. But I don't think he's quite on the level of Kenneth Walker, which is why I say it was such a massive loss for them.
Yep.
Right, because Kenneth Walker does so much for them. Gino played well, too, as well. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over as well, much as you can ask for them, but they also went up against a pretty good Rams defense.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised the Rams won. I just thought it was also going to be a little bit higher scoring than it was.
Me too. Yeah.
But with that being said, do you think they need to start getting JSN more involved in their offense? Or is it kind of what you expected?
I mean, he had 6 targets. DK had 9, Tyler Lockett had 7. So, he's involved. He is getting involved. It's just, this game, none of the receivers really had that great of a game other than DK, and the touchdown saved him. To have a great game, he had 21 points. But, Tyler Lockett had 10, and JSN, had 7. But, it's one of those things where I think Njigba is getting involved. And it's just, you gotta realize, they got a lot of talent on that offense, and they're going to be passing the ball around to DK a lot. Tyler's going to get open a lot. So, the thing is with JSN, he's in the perfect situation for him, I would say. Because you got
he's learned from 2 great wide receivers.
Yeah, schematically, JSN is a perfect Y. Tyler Lockett is the perfect Z, and DK is the perfect X. So you have the perfect wide receiver core. I think honestly, Geno Smith is starting to show why he is not an elite quarterback, why he's not considered a great quarterback, why he's considered only a good quarterback sometimes. And it's because he's not winning these type of games. The Seahawks should be winning their division at this juncture with the amount of talent that they have on the team. Should I remind you that they have Quandre Diggs, Bobby Wagner, Devin Witherspoon, Julian Love, Leonard Williams, Trey Brown, on their defensive side of the ball. And, Devin Bush is having a bit of a career renaissance as well over on the defensive side of the ball. And showing what he can do as a box linebacker.
So do you kind of think on the offensive side of the ball, it's a Geno Smith problem and not really a play calling problem?
100%. We're talking about the same play calling that got Russell Wilson into MVP votes.
Right.
So I don't know how much easier you can make it for your quarterback.
He's got 3 amazing weapons. 4, really, if you want to count the running backs.
What about Noah Fant?
I wouldn't call him amazing, but I mean, he's a good weapon to have.
He's a good tight
right?
end.
He's a good
He's
tight
good.
end. He's a good tight end.
And the thing that he offers is a great six man. When you need him as a six man, he's able to block. And
Put him out wide, yeah.
I think that's very invaluable. That's why I'm so high on Pat Fryermuth when we're talking about like GM discussion rather than like I'm high on him in fantasy too, but like in GM discussion, I'm willing to say Pat Fryermuth is a top 5 tight end in the NFL because of his blocking ability. You know,
Very good blocker.
and Noah Fant offers a very similar scheme. Big body guy that's going to get receptions down the field. That he's not going to go and rip off 50 yards like a Travis Kelce or George Kittle, but he's going to be the type of guy you go ahead and pass him the ball. He'll get tackled immediately. Sure, he's not getting that yak yardage, but that's the type of guy that you get your first down secured with. That's the type of guy where
Right.
he stays back to block on a release route. Then you're going to go ahead and have a lot more time to go get it to one of your playmakers, like your Kenneth Walker, like your DK Metcalf, like your Tyler Lockett, like your JSN. Like, and they got a good offensive line. It's probably top 10, and they got a good enough defense. They have the pieces in place, and they have the coaching staff in place. Uh, you know, their defense is injury riddled, but it's also one of those things where they have enough where they should be winning more games than they are. I think that they should have 2 more wins this season than they do.
So you think they should be pushing number 1 seed?
Yeah, definitely. I think that they should we're gonna see it on Thanksgiving, man. Because if they beat the 49ers in Candlestick, that's huge. Then they go and they go and host Dallas, then they host the 49ers, then they go to Philadelphia. This 4-game stretch decides if they get in the playoffs or not. They go 500 on this stretch, they're probably in the playoffs. They don't go 500 in this stretch, they are probably out. And that 500 is with the 2 wins over San Francisco, and God forbid they end up getting 3 wins over this stretch, then the Seahawks are an actual team. They're scary. And they have notable wins throughout the season. We mentioned this earlier. They beat the Lions in overtime. They beat the Browns. They lost to the Ravens. They got their ass whooped by the Ravens. But they beat, as I said, they beat Cleveland. It's just one of those things. They lost to the Bengals, but barely. They lost to the Rams, but in a pretty fashionable way. And if they go and win over Cincy and Los Angeles, now we're talking about a team with only 2 losses. But I don't know, man. I think it's a Geno Smith issue.
I would agree.
Frankly, I don't know, man. When we're talking about landing locations for Zach Wilson, maybe Seattle would be a great fit for him.
At what point do you think they would pull the ripcord on Geno Smith, so to speak?
At the end of the season, if they don't make the playoffs. It's playoffs or bust for Geno.
Okay. You think so? Ooh.
Well, that's the position that the franchise is in. So, the thing is with Geno is he got him to that point last year, and that's why he even kept the starting gig. Remember the talks
got that contract, yeah.
The whole reason that, last season we were talking about who's their quarterback. Drew Lock at the beginning of last season. We thought Drew Lock was going to be the starter, and then all of a sudden it was Geno Smith.
And then he balled out.
But this season he's had a couple good games, but a couple good games ain't going to be the reason you get into the playoffs. And if what's holding back is a quarterback, go get your guy. Go get a guy that will get your job done. Especially in a draft where you might be able to trade up and get a guy like Bo Nix. Realistically, he might slide past 15. You might not even have to trade up if you miss the playoffs this year.
I was deciding if I hate that or not, but I don't. Because realistically, contract-wise, you could move on from Geno almost at any time. Realistically, after and during this offseason, if you do decide to move on from him, it would be this coming off season. But at the same time, I personally don't think he will because you still got him on a fairly cheap contract,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you do decide to cut him or trade him, you're still dealing with that dead money, and then you're going to get another, first round pick, which still is a good amount of probably good amount of money, right? So I would like them to, but I don't think it's something that's really going to happen. I think they'll give him at least one more year,
You don't think that they drafted a developmental
realistically.
guy even?
It depends, man. It depends on who they get in free agency as well, leading up to the NFL draft. You know, because if they could get someone like Zach Wilson in a trade with the Jets, I don't think they're trying to try and draft a quarterback.
But what if they could
But
get a guy
at
like
the same
Shadur?
time, if they do draft someone, I think it's probably going to be like in the third round. I'd
So
probably say.
PFF is projecting Sanders out of Colorado to go 38th overall. They're also
But also at the same time, I mean, they've already been. So it's already been said. Now I don't know how true it is because Shadur, I don't think has said it himself that he's going to be coming back for another year
Mm-hmm.
at Colorado.
Yep.
So maybe that's more reason for the Seahawks to wait and see.
Yeah. They could also get Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington.
Love him.
And
great quarterback.
My
great
favorite
prospect.
My favorite pick, because I agree that they get a developmental guy later in the draft rather than like the second round or a first round pick. JJ McCarthy out of Michigan, who has been playing sensational football. And of course, Quinn Ewers should be available around that spot as well.
Yep. Especially if he declares, which it looks like he's going to declare.
Yep.
Right now, I don't think he really said if he is or isn't. What about the guy from Notre Dame? Forget his name. I'm blanking on his name right now.
I don't know, man.
I'm blanking hardcore on his name.
He's a sophomore, I think. Bushner.
I thought he was a junior.
Are you talking about Bushner?
I guess I'm from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I think he's with. Actually, I think he's with the Crimson Tide now, right? Sam Hartman.
Yeah, that guy.
So, Sam Hartman, like, he's serviceable, but like also like. My biggest issue with Sam Hartman is his size. He's 6'1", 210 pounds. So he's not your prototypical size. Also, like, his completion percentage isn't as high as I'd like it to be. And I also don't like the fact that, he's in a pro-style system already. And we've seen him make a ton of mistakes. He doesn't offer anything, like, that jumps off the stat sheet that's like, wow. He's a redshirted senior, by the way, so he is going to be declaring for the draft this year. But at Wake, he played his last 4 seasons at Wake, or 5 actually. His best season was 4,228 yards, and the way this season's going, he might be lucky to break 3K. He's gotten sacked 14 times. Like his release is pretty quick, but. I don't know, man. Sam Hartman is definitely a project quarterback, but he doesn't have the prototypical size or the arm talent that you want in a prototypical quarterback or in a developmental quarterback. Like he doesn't have that talent. So, like it'd be similar to like a Tom Brady coming out of college type pick. I'm not saying he has that type of talent, but that's the type of pick you're looking at when you're looking at Sam Hartman, probably a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, cheap guy.
A Stenson Bennett,
A cheap guy.
Yeah.